So what we're going to do next is we will switch back to our little slideshow, and we'll talk through some of these points on specific best practices for making 360 video.
Yeah, so again, to start with, the main difference between 360 and regular cameras is your audience feels like they are there. So if you pick it up and move it around, it's like picking up your whole audience and moving them.
And that's why people get motion sickness. As soon as that camera starts to move and you're not expecting the world around you to move, your body freaks out a little bit. And so, best practices, it's really good to just kind of pick one place to set the camera down, capture what you want to capture, and then do a hard cut, stop recording, move that camera somewhere else and pick up from there.
Yeah. And the key aspect of that is that your brain doesn't know to expect the movement, which is how you can kind of get away with it is the context. So when we're filming inside of vehicles, most of us have been in a vehicle, so our brain has the understanding of, oh, okay, there might be movement in the world around me, but I'm sitting still. So that can make it less nauseating. And it's really a matter of the distance to what's moving. So when you're really close, you're in a small location and you're moving that camera, there's a lot of motion, right? So we can get away with it if we are nice and far from where the movement is, so the movement feels more slow. So that's how we can get away with the drone. And I've also, we have some people in the office we need to do this experiment on, but I've had a number of people in drone footage that typically would have a very strong reaction to heights, and they didn't as much. I don't know if there's enough of a disconnect that your brain thinks you're a bird for a second. But all the cameras, they come with that little monopod to stick it on the end there. We've done that, and it had to be not too bad when we did for the city of Clinton, walking down the street, because you're high up enough and you're far enough away from the buildings, you're moving slow enough. So it's a fine line. I mean, it takes experimentation, but in general, especially for a presentation, we do just a series of still shots on the tripod. Of course, yeah, the main thing is it's a 360. It's looking everywhere, aside from directly underneath the camera where the stitch line is really dramatic. It can see everything. So there's no being behind the camera anymore.
If you're ever watching a 360 video and want to have a little bit of fun, turn it into a game of hide and seek and try to figure out where the cinematographer is hiding in the shot.
Yeah. Sometimes if we're filming on a factory floor, they'll give us a hard hat and a vest, and we'll pretend that we belong there, we work there. Otherwise, we go around the corner and
hide behind some boxes.
Hide behind some boxes. Yeah, literally. And then, like I was showing, if you've got somebody who's got a little more advanced video editing skills, as long as you move from that position and get a shot of where you were standing empty, you can just cut that piece out in a mask and put it over the top and disappear yourself, as long as nothing happens in that area. So those are just all the things to consider when you're filming. The other main thing is it's multiple lenses, right? What's nice about the newer cameras just having two lenses is you really just have, a stitch line on the left and the right. The more advanced cameras that have 6, maybe even 9 lenses, which means you've got 9 different videos you're stitching together, and they're all 4K, so it's a massive amount of data, and you've got that many more potential areas for things to go awry. So yeah, for the most part, obviously point the lens at what you're trying to record, and maybe, take into account that if there is going to be a stitch line error, I might kind of turn the camera a little bit, not directly facing my subject, but turning it so that that stitch line is facing, the corner where I know nothing's going to happen, and that's going to be stable.
It's another good point about, best practices, not only for making 360 videos, but actually deploying 360 videos to, your students or your trainees, is how is somebody actually going to watch this video? If you're going to have something where, the point of focus in the video can move all around them, you want to make sure that your viewer who's in the headset is actually in a position to have that full rotation. So when we put people in VR, especially in 360 videos, we like to make sure that they're seated, because, if you are standing on site and there's any sort of motion and you try to account for that, I don't want you to fall over and crash into the floor. So we want to make sure you're seated, and we want to make sure ideally you're in a swivel chair. That way you can just kind of naturally turn and follow along with whatever might be moving, or whatever you want to follow along with or observe in the video.
And there's no, changing that position after the fact. Wherever you put the cameras, where they feel like they are. So this can be, kind of an odd sensation, but also super beneficial. Say if we are, working underneath a vehicle, we put the camera there, for the audience, they feel like they're mouse high, but if the point of them is to look up and see, the details of the undercarriage of a vehicle, it's super handy to put it in kind of a unique position. Yeah, that's the main consideration is where are you placing your audience? Because with 2D video, you just automatically have that disconnection. Anything that's not in frame isn't there. I'm just looking at, an image that's moving, but this is really, an experience for the audience. And of course, the main little technical issue that is inescapable is the bottom of the camera. It's always going to be a weird little distorted portion. And so we typically just cover that up. Great place to put some branding or a logo. When I do drone footage, I'll typically do this even though the distorted part is the top, is the drone. So we'll just cover up the drone with, if it's clear blue sky, just a solid blue, or if it's a cloudy day, we'll cover it up with a cloud, because they're not supposed to be looking up anyway. So if they look up, it's just a solid color. But I'll throw that floor stamp on the bottom, so it's more of a magic carpet ride than, I'm dangling from something looking down. You can get fancy, and it's got a lot easier these days with the generative, content aware fill in Photoshop and stuff. We've done this before as well, where the ground that you're on typically is going to be stable, and so we can just make a fake image that matches the ground, and then you're going to be totally immersed, because when you look down, it just looks like the ground you're standing on. And we did that for some National Park Service tours that we did for them way before AI made it that much easier to just cut a hole and say, hey, fill this hole so it looks like it is the same as its surroundings. Really, two things, right? You get your 360 camera, and typically it comes with an app that'll help you run it, but most of them are a touch screen. So pretty much all those options are on camera, and they're very reasonably priced these days. They cost as much as a nice fancy digital camcorder cost me when I was first getting into video production.
Yeah, and Insta360 tends to be the brand that we use for a lot of these. Just those two lens cameras that we were showing and that you can see in the image right here. One of those will run you a few $100, depending on which model you're getting. You can get some that are, $500-$600. And they're fantastic quality, and they're extremely portable, and they're reasonably durable. They even have all sorts of different attachments, like Vinny was saying, the monopod. If you want to get out there and get active and really nauseate people in the headset, don't do that, please. You have that option. They have waterproof cases. We've taken these swimming in the Bahamas with us. They're extremely flexible and robust little cameras that you can do a lot of cool stuff with.
Yeah, and all the, custom settings that I was getting into, there's not going to be anything in there that's going to surprise a videography student, right? It's just aperture and exposure, just how much light are we pulling in? What's my my definition of white and kind of, the color correction stuff. And again, the editing, I was showing Adobe Premiere. I've been using Adobe Premiere for literal decades, but there's a lot of options out there. I believe DaVinci Resolve is free, and I think it can do this. I've looked into the free version of Canva because I know a lot of videography students end up using that. The problem is it doesn't let you use full 4K resolution, so you're just not going to get the image quality that you need to have it feel like an experience when you're in there. But again, really, really, really basic, the most simple video editing I've ever done in my life, because you just go from shot to shot, fade. You don't want to use fancy transitions. It's awkward in the headset. And a lot of times, we're filming somebody demonstrate a procedure or on a job site, we'll use one of those handheld cameras or a GoPro and strap it to their hat, strap it to their chest, and then use the picture-in-picture, use that 2D video inside the 360 video as a close-up if you want to see, intricate details of what their hands are doing. Or throw in, text and extra infographics and if the presentation's happening here and you got all this extra real estate to work with, using the plane to sphere, curve that flat image a little bit, and yeah, that's about it when it comes to editing.
Yep. To Vinny's point, there's a lot that you can do to augment a 360 video. 360 videos are fantastic on their own, but sometimes it makes sense to throw some additional stuff on there, and that could just be graphics, that could be little pop-ups, that could be 3D models. And as soon as you start adding those additional elements, you start kind of towing the line between a normal 360 video experience and what we call a hybrid 360 video experience. Yeah. And that's going to be kind of one of our next chapters that we cover in this, is how do we transition from 360 to full-on CGI, and how do we start adding some amount of interaction here to add more engagement to what the user is seeing and doing in the headset. So that'll be what we talk about next.